Elon Musk poses as a homeless man to test a landlord. The truth that comes out shocks everyone. In the bustling heart of a city where wealth reigns supreme, Gerald Whitmore sat in his lavish office, eyes fixed on the glowing spreadsheet before him. Numbers danced across the screen, each representing a tenant, a life, a family, but to Gerald, they were merely figures to be manipulated, squeezed for every last penny. A knock at the door interrupted his calculations. "Come in," he barked, annoyed at the disturbance. A disheveled man stepped inside, his worn clothes and weary eyes telling a story of hardship and desperation. "Mr. Whitmore," he began, his voice trembling, "I was hoping you might have a small room available for rent. I don't have much, but I'm willing to work, to do whatever it takes." Gerald leaned back in his chair, a smirk playing on his lips. "Do you now? And what makes you think I'd rent to someone like you? Look at yourself, you're nothing but a vagrant, a burden on society." The man's shoulders slumped, but a flicker of determination shone in his eyes. "Please, sir. Everyone deserves a chance. I may not have much, but I have my dignity, my willingness to work hard." Gerald scoffed, waving his hand dismissively. "Security! Get this man out of my sight. I don't have time for this nonsense." As the guards escorted the man out, Gerald returned to his spreadsheet, the incident already fading from his mind. Little did he know, the wheels of change had been set in motion, and his world was about to be turned upside down. Unbeknownst to Gerald, the homeless man who had graced his office was none other than Elon Musk, a visionary entrepreneur with a hidden agenda. Disguised and determined, Elon had embarked on a secret experiment to witness firsthand the treatment of the less fortunate by those who held power and wealth. As he walked the streets, Elon immersed himself in the struggling community of tenants, listening to their stories and experiencing their daily challenges. He met families barely scraping by, their hopes and dreams overshadowed by the constant threat of eviction. An elderly veteran, proud but beaten down by life's hardships, shared his tale of sacrifice and the indignity of having nowhere to call home. A single mother, her eyes filled with both love for her child and fear for their future, confided in Elon about the weight of responsibility on her shoulders. With each encounter, Elon's resolve grew stronger. He saw in these individuals a resilience and strength that Gerald Whitmore could never understand. They were more than just numbers on a spreadsheet. They were human beings with inherent worth and potential. As he settled into a small, rundown apartment, Elon began to lay the groundwork for his plan. He would expose not only Gerald's cruelty but also the power of unity and compassion. In this battle between greed and humanity, Elon knew that the stakes were high, but he was determined to shine a light on the truth and inspire change from within. Gerald Whitmore's empire was built on a foundation of ruthlessness and indifference. He moved through life with a sense of entitlement, believing that his wealth granted him the right to control and exploit others. The struggles and hardships of his tenants were merely inconveniences, obstacles to be overcome in his relentless pursuit of profit. As Elon Musk continued to integrate himself into the tenant community, he witnessed firsthand the cruelty Gerald inflicted upon those who dared to challenge his authority. Families were evicted without warning, their pleas for mercy falling on deaf ears. Gerald's team of lawyers and enforcers worked tirelessly to quash any resistance, leaving the tenants feeling helpless and alone. Yet amidst the darkness, glimmers of hope began to emerge. The tenants, once isolated in their struggles, started to come together, sharing their stories and finding strength in their collective voice. Elon watched as they organized meetings, pooled their resources, and planned peaceful protests to demand fair treatment and basic rights. As the community united, Gerald's facade of invincibility began to crack. Whispers of discontent and calls for change grew louder, echoing through the halls of his buildings and spilling out onto the streets. The seeds of a revolution had been planted, and Elon knew that the time for action was drawing near. In a small, dimly lit room, Elon Musk sat hunched over a laptop, his fingers flying across the keyboard. He had spent weeks gathering evidence, documenting the stories of the tenants, and building a case against Gerald Whitmore's unethical practices. The time had come to bring the truth to light and expose the rot at the core of Gerald's empire. As he hit the send button, Elon felt a rush of adrenaline. The email, addressed to major news outlets and government agencies, contained a detailed account of Gerald's misdeeds, complete with supporting evidence and testimony from the tenants themselves. It was a bombshell that would send shockwaves through the city and beyond. Within hours, the story broke, dominating headlines and sparking outrage among the public. Gerald Whitmore's name became synonymous with greed and cruelty, his reputation shattered beyond repair. Investors began to pull out, tenants staged mass protests, and the authorities launched investigations into his business dealings. Amidst the chaos, Elon emerged from the shadows, revealing his true identity and the purpose behind his experiment. He stood tall, a beacon of hope for the downtrodden, as he addressed the media and the world at large. Today, we have seen the power of unity and the importance of compassion, he declared, his voice ringing with conviction. Real strength lies not in wealth, but in the courage to stand up for what is right, to lift up those who have been pushed down, and to build a society where everyone is treated with dignity and respect. As Gerald's empire teetered on the brink of collapse, the stage was set for a showdown between two vastly different visions of the world. The battle lines had been drawn, and the fate of the community hung in the balance. In the aftermath of Elon Musk's revelation, a newfound sense of empowerment and unity swept through the tenant community. They had long endured Gerald's oppression in silence, but now, with the eyes of the world upon them, they found their voice and their strength. Emboldened by the support and the knowledge that their struggles were no longer hidden, they took to the streets in peaceful demonstrations, demanding justice and change. They marched together, a sea of ordinary people united by their shared experiences and their dreams of a better future. As the protests grew, so too did the pressure on Gerald Whitmore. His once impenetrable facade began to crumble, his carefully crafted image of success and power unraveling before the world's watchful gaze. Reporters camped outside his office. His phone rang incessantly with calls from angry investors, and his team of lawyers scrambled to contain the fallout. Yet even in the face of this adversity, Gerald remained defiant. He lashed out at his critics, dismissing the accusations against him as baseless lies and vowing to fight back with all the resources at his disposal. He clung to his belief that his wealth and status would protect him, that he was untouchable. But as the days turned into weeks, and the pressure continued to mount, cracks began to appear in Gerald's armor. The once unshakable titan of industry found himself plagued by doubt and uncertainty, his world crumbling around him. In the midst of this turmoil, Elon Musk stood as a pillar of strength and inspiration for the community. He worked tirelessly to support the tenants, using his resources and influence to amplify their voices and bring about meaningful change. Through his example, he showed that true power lay not in the accumulation of wealth, but in the ability to uplift and empower others. As the battle between greed and compassion raged on, the fate of the community, and of Gerald himself, hung in the balance. The path ahead was uncertain, but one thing was clear: the world was watching, and the outcome of this struggle would have far-reaching consequences for all. As the protests and media scrutiny intensified, Gerald Whitmore found himself backed into a corner. His once unassailable position of power was crumbling beneath his feet, and he grappled with the realization that his actions had finally caught up with him. In a desperate bid to salvage his reputation and maintain control, Gerald called a press conference. Standing before a sea of reporters, he painted himself as the victim, claiming that the accusations against him were nothing more than a smear campaign orchestrated by his enemies. "I have always acted in the best interests of this city and its people," he declared, his voice dripping with false sincerity. "The allegations made against me are baseless and motivated by jealousy and resentment. I will not be intimidated by the lies of a few disgruntled tenants and a billionaire playing dress-up." But even as the words left his mouth, Gerald could feel the ground shifting beneath him. The reporters, once eager to hang on his every word, now looked at him with skepticism and disdain. The public, armed with the truth, saw through his hollow promises and empty platitudes. As the press conference devolved into a frenzy of tough questions and accusatory statements, Gerald felt his composure slipping. He lashed out, his true colors showing through the cracks in his carefully crafted facade. In that moment, the world saw the real Gerald Whitmore, a man driven by greed and self-interest, willing to trample on anyone who stood in his way. The fallout was swift and merciless. Investors pulled their funding, tenants staged mass rent strikes, and the authorities ramped up their investigations into his business dealings. Gerald's empire, once thought unassailable, began to crumble like a house of cards. In the midst of the chaos, Elon Musk and the tenant community pressed forward with their mission of change. They recognized that exposing Gerald's misdeeds was only the first step. The real work lay in building a new foundation of fairness, compassion, and equality. Elon worked hand in hand with the tenants, listening to their needs and ideas, and using his resources to bring them to life. They established a tenants' rights organization, providing legal aid and support to those facing eviction or abuse. They created a community fund, pooling their resources to help families in need and to invest in local businesses and infrastructure. As the community came together, they discovered a strength and resilience they never knew they possessed. They found hope in each other, in the knowledge that they were no longer alone in their struggles. They began to see themselves not as victims, but as agents of change, capable of shaping their own destinies. Through small acts of kindness and daily choices, they began to transform their world from the ground up. They started community gardens, planting seeds of hope and nourishment in once barren lots. They opened a cooperative grocery store, providing affordable, healthy food to families in need. They launched education programs, giving children and adults alike the tools and knowledge to build a better future. As the community blossomed, so too did the individuals within it. The elderly veteran found purpose and connection in mentoring young people, sharing his hard-earned wisdom and resilience. The single mother discovered her own strength and leadership, becoming a voice for change and an inspiration to others. Through their unity and determination, the tenants showed that real power lay not in wealth or status, but in the bonds of community and the courage to stand up for what was right. They were living proof that change was possible, that a better world was within reach. As the community's transformation gained momentum, Gerald Whitmore found himself increasingly isolated and desperate. His once loyal allies began to distance themselves, unwilling to be associated with his tarnished reputation. His remaining tenants, emboldened by the success of the rent strikes and the support of the community, stood firm in their demands for change. In a last-ditch effort to regain control, Gerald resorted to underhanded tactics. He hired a team of private investigators to dig up dirt on Elon Musk and the tenant leaders, hoping to discredit them in the eyes of the public. He used his remaining influence to pressure local politicians, seeking to block any reforms that would threaten his bottom line. But even as he schemed and plotted, Gerald could feel the walls closing in around him. The investigations into his business practices were bearing fruit, uncovering a web of fraud, corruption, and abuse that stretched back years. The public outcry grew louder, and the calls for justice more insistent. As the net tightened around him, Gerald began to unravel. He became paranoid and erratic, lashing out at anyone who dared to challenge him. His once sharp mind dulled by fear and desperation, he made mistake after mistake, each one further sealing his fate. In the end, it was his own hubris that proved his undoing. In a moment of rage and desperation, Gerald confronted Elon Musk in public, accusing him of ruining his life and destroying everything he had built. But as he ranted and raved, the cameras rolled, capturing every ugly word and twisted expression. The footage went viral, spreading like wildfire across social media and news outlets. The world saw Gerald Whitmore for what he truly was, a man consumed by greed and self-interest, willing to trample on anyone who stood in his way. As the public turned against him and the authorities closed in, Gerald finally began to realize the magnitude of his mistakes. He had underestimated the power of unity, of compassion, of the human spirit. And now, he would pay the price for his arrogance and cruelty. As Gerald Whitmore's empire crumbled around him, the community that had once lived in fear of his power began to rebuild and thrive. With Elon Musk's guidance and support, they turned their attention to creating a new model of housing and community development, one that put people first and prioritized equity and sustainability. They worked together to renovate and upgrade the neglected buildings, transforming them into safe, affordable homes for families in need. They implemented green technologies and energy-efficient systems, reducing their environmental footprint and lowering utility costs for tenants. But the changes went beyond just bricks and mortar. The community came together to create a new culture of mutual support and empowerment. They established a network of social services and resources, providing access to healthcare, education, and job training for all who needed it. They formed neighborhood watch groups and community patrols, working together to keep their streets safe and secure. As the community blossomed, so too did the individuals within it. The once struggling families found stability and opportunity, their children thriving in a nurturing environment. The elderly and disabled found care and companionship, no longer forgotten or marginalized. The formerly homeless found a place to call home, and with it, a sense of dignity and purpose. Through their unity and determination, the community had not only survived, but thrived in the face of adversity. They had shown the world that change was possible, that a better way was within reach. And in doing so, they had become a model for others to follow, a beacon of hope in a world too often dominated by greed and inequality. As Elon Musk looked out over the transformed neighborhood, he felt a sense of pride and purpose. He had set out to expose the cruelty and injustice of Gerald Whitmore's empire, but in the process, he had helped to unleash something far more powerful, the potential of ordinary people to come together and create extraordinary change. As the community celebrated their hard-won victories and looked to the future with hope and determination, Gerald Whitmore sat alone in his office, a broken man. The once mighty titan of industry had fallen from grace, his empire reduced to ashes and his reputation shattered beyond repair. He had lost everything: his wealth, his power, his status. But more than that, he had lost something far more precious: his humanity. In his relentless pursuit of profit and control, he had forgotten the most basic truths of life: that every person had inherent worth and dignity, that compassion and kindness were the true measures of success. As he sat in the silence of his office, surrounded by the trappings of his former glory, Gerald began to reflect on the choices that had brought him to this point. He thought of the families he had evicted, the lives he had ruined, the suffering he had caused. And for the first time in his life, he felt a flicker of remorse, a glimmer of understanding. He knew that he could never undo the harm he had done, that he could never fully atone for his sins. But as he looked out the window at the transformed community below, he realized that he had a choice to make. He could continue to cling to his old ways, to his belief in the primacy of wealth and power. Or he could accept the lessons that Elon Musk and the tenants had taught him and begin the long, difficult journey of redemption. As he pondered his next move, Gerald knew that the road ahead would be hard. He had burned so many bridges, hurt so many people. But he also knew that he had to try, that he owed it to himself and to the world to be better, to do better. And so, with a heavy heart and a newfound sense of purpose, Gerald Whitmore stepped out of his office and into the unknown, ready to face the consequences of his actions and to begin the long, slow process of change. As Gerald Whitmore struggled to come to terms with the wreckage of his past and the weight of his choices, the community he had once sought to control continued to grow and flourish. Under the guidance of Elon Musk and the leadership of the tenants themselves, they had created a new model of living, one built on the principles of fairness, compassion, and sustainability. The transformed neighborhood became a beacon of hope and inspiration for people across the city and beyond. Visitors came from far and wide to see the community gardens, the cooperative businesses, the vibrant public spaces where people of all ages and backgrounds came together to learn, play, and create. The story of their triumph over adversity spread like wildfire, capturing the hearts and minds of millions. It became a rallying cry for change, a powerful reminder that ordinary people, united in purpose and driven by compassion, could overcome even the greatest of obstacles. As the community's reputation grew, so too did its influence. Politicians and policymakers began to take notice, recognizing the potential of the model they had created. They sought out the advice and expertise of the tenant leaders, looking to replicate their success in other parts of the city and beyond. And at the heart of it all was Elon Musk, the visionary who had set out to expose the cruelty and injustice of Gerald Whitmore's empire, but who had ended up unleashing something far more powerful. Through his example and his leadership, He had shown that true wealth lay not in the accumulation of money or power, but in the ability to uplift and empower others. As the community celebrated its achievements and looked to the future with hope and determination, Elon knew that their work was far from over. There were still so many people in need, so many injustices to be righted. But he also knew that they had planted the seeds of change, and that those seeds would continue to grow and flourish long after he was gone. As the months passed and the community continued to thrive, Gerald Whitmore found himself on a journey of self-discovery and redemption. The once ruthless landlord had been humbled by his fall from grace, forced to confront the consequences of his actions and the depth of his own moral failings. At first, he struggled to find his place in this new world, unsure of how to make amends for the harm he had caused. But slowly, with the help of the community he had once sought to exploit, he began to find his way. He started by volunteering his time and resources to support the very people he had once oppressed. He worked alongside the tenants in the community gardens, learning the value of hard work and the joy of nurturing life. He donated his remaining assets to the community fund, providing much-needed resources for education, healthcare, and social services. And as he immersed himself in the daily life of the neighborhood, Gerald began to see the world through new eyes. He saw the strength and resilience of the people he had once dismissed as weak and disposable. He saw the power of compassion and kindness to transform lives and heal old wounds. Slowly but surely, Gerald began to earn the trust and respect of the community. They saw in him a man who had faced his demons and emerged stronger, a man who had learned the hard way the true meaning of success and happiness. And as he worked to rebuild his life and his reputation, Gerald found himself drawn to the very person who had exposed his misdeeds and brought about his downfall, Elon Musk. In the visionary entrepreneur, he saw a kindred spirit, a man driven by a higher purpose and a deep commitment to making the world a better place. Together, they began to imagine a new future, one in which the lessons of the past could be harnessed to create a more just and equitable society. They dreamed of a world where wealth and power were used not to oppress and exploit, but to lift up and empower the most vulnerable among us. And as they worked to turn that dream into a reality, Gerald and Elon knew that they were part of something far greater than themselves. They were part of a movement, a global awakening to the power of compassion, unity, and hope. As the years passed and the community continued to grow and evolve, the impact of their work began to ripple outward, touching lives far beyond the borders of their neighborhood. The model they had created, built on the principles of fairness, sustainability, and empowerment, became a template for change, a roadmap for a better future. Governments and organizations around the world began to take notice, seeking to learn from the example of Elon Musk and the tenants who had dared to dream of a different way of living. They saw in their success a powerful reminder that change was possible, that a more just and equitable world was within reach. And as the movement grew, so too did the sense of hope and possibility. People from all walks of life, from all corners of the globe, began to come together in a spirit of unity and common purpose. They recognized that the challenges facing humanity were too great to be tackled alone, that only by working together could they hope to build a brighter future for all. At the heart of this global awakening was a simple but powerful idea: that every person, no matter their background or circumstances, had inherent worth and dignity. That true wealth lay not in the accumulation of money or power, but in the ability to create a world where everyone had the opportunity to thrive and reach their full potential. As Elon Musk and Gerald Whitmore looked back on the journey they had taken, they marveled at the power of this idea to transform lives and reshape societies. They saw in the community they had helped to build a microcosm of what was possible, a glimpse of the better world they knew was within reach. And as they looked to the future, they knew that their work was far from over. There were still so many challenges to be faced, so many injustices to be righted. But they also knew that they were not alone, that they were part of a global movement of change, driven by the power of compassion, unity, and hope. With renewed determination and a sense of purpose, Elon and Gerald set out to continue the work they had begun, to be the change they wished to see in the world. They knew that the road ahead would be long and difficult, but they also knew that every step they took, every act of kindness and compassion, would bring them closer to the world they dreamed of, a world where every person could live with dignity, security, and joy. As the story of Elon Musk and the tenant community spread far and wide, it became a beacon of hope and inspiration for people around the world. Their triumph over adversity, their commitment to compassion and justice, had struck a chord with millions, awakening a sense of possibility and purpose that had long lain dormant. In the face of the many challenges facing humanity, poverty, inequality, climate change, and more, their example provided a powerful reminder that change was possible, that a better world was within reach. And as more and more people began to take up the call to work towards a future of greater fairness and sustainability, the momentum of the movement grew stronger with each passing day. For Elon and Gerald, the journey they had taken together had been one of profound transformation and growth. They had started as adversaries, pitted against each other in a battle between greed and compassion. But through the power of unity and understanding, they had found common ground, discovering in each other a shared commitment to making the world a better place. As they looked out over the thriving community they had helped to build, they knew that their work was a testament to the enduring power of the human spirit. In the face of even the greatest adversity, they had shown that it was possible to come together, to find strength in unity, and to create something beautiful and enduring. And as they looked to the future, they knew that the legacy they had created would live on long after they were gone. The seeds they had planted, the ideas they had nurtured, would continue to grow and flourish, inspiring new generations to take up the cause of justice and compassion. In the end, the story of Elon Musk and the tenant community was not just a tale of one neighborhood or one city. It was a story of hope and possibility, a reminder that every person, no matter their background or circumstances, had the power to make a difference, to be a force for good in the world. And as the sun set on their city, casting a golden glow over the streets and buildings they had transformed, Elon and Gerald knew that their journey was far from over. There was still so much work to be done, so many lives to be touched and uplifted. But they also knew that they had set in motion a powerful force for change, one that would continue to ripple outward, touching hearts and minds across the globe. With a sense of gratitude and purpose, they turned to face the future, ready to embrace the challenges and opportunities that lay ahead. For they knew that, together, there was nothing they could not achieve, no dream too big or too bold. And in that knowledge, they found the strength and courage to keep moving forward, to keep building a world where every person could live with dignity, compassion, and joy.